The full true story of the Mary Celeste, 1872. The story of the Mary Celeste is not one of pirates or sea monsters, but of an enduring maritime mystery that has captivated the world for over 150 years. It is the story of a ship found sailing itself, perfectly seaworthy but completely abandoned by its crew. The ship and the crew. The ship, originally named Amazon, the vessel was a 282-ton brigantine, two-masted sailing ship. She had a somewhat unlucky history, with a captain dying on her first voyage and a series of mishaps. By 1872, she was American-owned and renamed Mary Celeste. The captain, Benjamin Spooner Briggs, 37, was an experienced and respected mariner from a seafaring family. He was a devout Methodist, sober and reliable. He invested his savings in the ship and was its part owner. The crew. The crew consisted of 7 experienced men: first mate Albert Richardson, second mate Andrew Gilling, steward Edward Head, and 4 German sailors, the Volkerts, the Gottschalk brothers, and Lorenzen. The passengers: Captain Briggs's wife, Sarah Elizabeth Briggs, and their 2-year-old daughter, Sophia Matilda Briggs. They accompanied him for what was expected to be a routine, albeit winter, Atlantic crossing. The voyage begins on November 7, 1872. The Mary Celeste departed New York Harbor bound for Genoa, Italy. Her cargo was 1,701 barrels of commercial alcohol, high-proof industrial ethanol, not drinking alcohol, a valuable but potentially hazardous shipment. Just over a week later, on November 15th, another brigantine, the Dei Gratia, by the grace of God, left the same port with a cargo of petroleum, also bound for Gibraltar and then the Mediterranean. Her captain was David Morehouse. Crucially, Morehouse and Briggs knew each other and had dined together just days before their respective departures. They were friends. The discovery, December 4, 1872. A little after 1 p.m. on December 4, 1872, some 400 miles east of the Azores in the rough North Atlantic, a deckhand on the Dei Gratia spotted a ship sailing erratically, yawing slightly in the fresh wind. Captain Morehouse grew concerned. He recognized the ship as the Mary Celeste. He signaled her but got no response. After observing her strange behavior for 2 hours, he sent First Mate Oliver DeVoe and 2 seamen in a small boat to investigate. What they found has become the stuff of legend. 1. The ship was deserted. There was not a single soul on board. Captain Briggs, his family, and the entire crew were gone. It was largely seaworthy. The ship was wet from water sloshing in the bilges, but it was not taking on water. The hull was sound, the mast was intact, and the sails were set, though some were damaged or missing. There was a 6-month supply of food and water. The lifeboat was missing. The ship's yawl, a small lifeboat kept on deck, was gone. It appeared it had been deliberately launched, not torn away by a storm. For strange clues, the ship's clock and compass were destroyed. The navigational sextant and marine chronometer were missing. The captain's logbook was left on his desk. The last entry was dated November 24th, 9 a.m., placing the ship 400 miles west of where it was found. This meant the ship had sailed on, unmanned, for over a week. A rope, possibly a makeshift tow or sounding line, was found trailing in the water, its end frayed. There was 3.5 feet of water in the bilge, not critically dangerous for a ship of that size, but enough to be concerning. One of the 2 pumps had been disassembled, and a lot of water was found between the deck and the hull. 9 of the 1,701 alcohol barrels were empty. They were made of red oak, which is more porous than white oak, and the alcohol had seeped out. Crucially, there was no sign of a struggle, violence, or panic. Personal effects, valuables, and even the crew's pipes and tobacco were left undisturbed. It was as if the crew had left for the lifeboat calmly and intentionally, expecting to return or be towed. The abandonment. When and why? Based on the log's last entry, November 24th, and the position where the Dei Gratia found her, the abandonment is believed to have occurred between November 24th and 25th, 1872. Why did they abandon a perfectly sound ship? This is the core of the mystery. Over the years, countless wild theories have emerged. Pirates, seaquakes, giant squids, Bermuda Triangle nonsense. However, the most plausible explanations, supported by maritime experts, center on a perceived emergency that forced a panicked but orderly evacuation. The most likely scenario, the alcohol fumes theory. 1. The leaking cargo. The 9 empty barrels of alcohol had leaked, filling the hold with potent fumes. Rough weather. The ship likely encountered rough seas around November 24-25. The rolling motion would have sloshed the leaking alcohol, increasing vaporization. A terrifying sound. When the crew opened the hatch to inspect the cargo, a buildup of fumes or even a small vapor explosion might have roared out. This would have been terrifying, but not necessarily destructive. Fear of implosion. Captain Briggs, fearing a massive explosion was imminent, ordered everyone into the lifeboat. He would have taken the chronometer and sextant for navigation. The fatal mistake. They tethered the lifeboat to the ship with a strong rope. As they waited at a safe distance, a squall hit. The rope breaks. The Mary Celeste, with her sails still set, surged forward in the squall. The tow rope snapped from the strain, explaining the frayed rope found trailing. 7. Stranded. The captain, his family, and the crew were now adrift in a small lifeboat in the midwinter North Atlantic. The mothership, now freed, sailed away faster than they could row. The Mary Celeste survived the squall. The overloaded lifeboat did not. They all perished at sea. This theory explains nearly all the clues: the orderly abandonment, the missing navigation instruments, the frayed rope, the disassembled pump, perhaps an attempt to deal with bilge water mistaken for leaking alcohol, and the ultimate fate of the crew. Aftermath and legacy. Salvage hearing. The crew of the Dei Gratia were hailed as heroes but treated with deep suspicion. The Admiralty Court in Gibraltar subjected them to a lengthy hearing, suspecting foul play or fraud. In the end, they were cleared of all wrongdoing but received a salvage award of only $1,700, significantly less than the value of the ship and cargo. A sign the court was satisfied with their story, but not fully convinced. The ship's fate. The Mary Celeste continued to sail under new owners for 12 years, gaining a reputation as a ghost ship or bad luck vessel. In 1885, her owner deliberately wrecked her on a Haitian reef in a failed insurance fraud scheme. The myth. The story was sensationalized by a young writer named Arthur Conan Doyle, future author of Sherlock Holmes. In 1884, he published a fictional short story called J. Habakkuk Jeffson's Statement, which introduced the name Marie Celeste and fantastical elements like vengeful ex-slaves and cryptic messages. This fictional account is the source of most of the pop culture myths that persist to this day. In summary, the Mary Celeste was abandoned by her crew and passengers around November 24, 1872, likely due to a panicked but rational decision made in the face of a perceived catastrophic danger, most probably alcohol fumes from the cargo. The true horror of the story is not a supernatural event, but the tragic, slow-dawning realization of 10 people in a small boat watching their only hope for survival sail away without them.